So now we are going to move on to another form. We're going to be working on the cone this time. We're doing the cone now because it's very similar to how you have to shade the cylinder. So please have your sketchbooks and pencils ready, follow along, and pause whenever you need to. Start by dividing your paper in half again. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect as long as it's divided in half. Every time that I do a new form, we will be working with a light source from the right side again. But let's look at the cone and the basic shapes that this form is made of. So here's a cone. If you look from the side, you have a basic triangle. If you look from the bottom or the top, you have a circle. See that? So again, like the cylinder, if you draw a triangle, you can't just put a circle under it. That looks like an upside down ice cream cone. That is not how you draw a cone. We're gonna have to do the same thing that we did last time for the bottom of the cylinder. We are not going to worry about this open hole. You can if you want to, but I am not going to do that. We are going to stick to a basic triangular shape. So when you go to draw your cone, start with like the beginnings of a capital A. Now, again, I'm not going to draw my line straight across. That's just looks like a triangle. We are drawing a 3D form on a 2D piece of paper. We have to try and make it look 3D. So to do that, you're gonna have to curve the bottom a little bit. If you do the hole on the top, you gotta match the ellipse, the bottom of the ellipse, and this curve down here to each other. But we're not gonna worry about that right now. So I'm going to do my light source from the right side again, just like last time. And now we have to think about the two directions of shading that we will have. We will have the curved shading that follows the curve on the bottom of the cone, just like we did with the cylinder. But now, instead of two vertical lines, we have two diagonal lines that come together. So our shading is going to look like a fan when we start shading our cone. And what I mean by that is it's going to be straight up and down in the middle. So right down the middle, you'll have straight up and down. But as you move to either side, it's going to fan out like so. So again, with the light source on the right side of your cone is going to be lighter. The left side is going to be darker. So let's start by just very lightly shading right down the middle, straight up and down. And then I'm going to move to the left because I know that this is darker. And I'm just kind of not being too particular about getting it perfect right now. I'm just trying to get the directions figured out. So now that I've done that, I can actually go in and start darkening because I know exactly which direction to shade. And I am going to have to go in and darken this even more, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. Now I'm going to do the other side. And again, I'm fanning out, trying to get that nice transition from light to dark. Now this is not dark enough, so I would just need to go in and continue to darken that just a little bit. Now that was the hardest part of the shading. Now we need to do the other direction, which is the curve. So I'm going to follow this curve. And again, I like to keep the curved part to the left half at first, and then I can slowly smooth out that line that I am starting to create with this curved shading. Now, with the cylinder, the whole time it was the same width of curved shading, but now because our top goes in, we have to keep in mind that this shading needs to start getting smaller. So I'm trying to keep an eye on that center line, my shading, and not going past that center line with my curve shading yet. Smooth this out a little bit. So now I'm going to go in and try to smooth out this shading right on the edge just a little bit. So I'm trying to create that nice transition again. And now I'm actually going to go in and do my fan shading again just to really smooth out that transition. I don't want any lines from dark to light. Darken this just a little bit more. And remember, as you're shading, try to use the side of the lead. Make sure your pencil is sharp. It'll be a lot easier to control. And I just messed that up doing that. All right. So now you have shaded your cone. Have a nice smooth transition from light to dark. Clean up the edges if you need to. If you went outside the lines, it's okay. That's why we're doing everything in pencil. All right. Now the last thing we need to do is get our cast shadow in there. Again, our light source is on the right, so our shadow is going to be on the left because the cone is blocking the light from hitting the surface it is sitting on. Currently, it's just a floating cone, so we really need to define that it is sitting on something. So again, from that lowest point on your cone, we're going to draw a line that goes to the left, and if it goes off the paper, that's okay. Now, with the cylinder, we just kind of did straight across, but for the cone, because it's triangular, we want it to look like our shadow is going towards, the edges of our shadow are going towards each other. So I had to fix the bottom line because I hadn't quite defined that yet. So now our cone is starting to look like a triangle versus a rectangle, which is what our cylinder was. Again, the darkest part of your shadow is going to be around the edge of your cone. And again, I like to bring in that darkness right in the middle of the shadow and let it slowly fade out around that. But I'm gonna have to darken it a little bit because I didn't get it quite dark enough the first time. So I'm getting this super dark area right down the middle and then letting it fade out just a little bit. I'm trying to make sure that that shading is nice and smooth in there, smooth transitions from dark to lighter in all of the shading that I've done so far. So that is your cone. Now, on this side of your paper, you need to draw a cone on your own. Choose a different light source. Your light source, it cannot be from the right. You need to choose a different light source so you're getting practice with shading from a different angle. So it cannot be from the right. It needs to be either from the left, up above, wherever you'd like to put it, as long as it's not from the right. So go ahead, get started, and good luck.